The elevator dinged at 2:17 a.m., a single chime that sounded too calm for that hour. Nadia froze in her studio apartment, halfway between her kettle and the thin window where the city glowed like cooled metal. She hadn't called the elevator, no one had. Another chime. The hallway outside her door exhaled, a draft that smelled like dust and copper. She opened the peephole and saw the elevator doors sitting wide, mouth open, as if surprised to find themselves on her floor. The display above the doors flickered. 12, 14, 12, 14. The building had no 13th floor. It never had. Her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. There is a missing stair in every building. Some are vertical. Nadia laughed without humor and thumbed back a reply that she never sent. The elevator's interior light stuttered, revealing a small square of darker dark at the back panel, like a stain that remembered a shape. The doors started to close. She felt a tug, nothing physical, just the sensation you get when someone calls your name in a crowd. She pushed her door open, letting the night air spill in. The hall carpet had a pattern that repeated every 8 feet. The repeat stopped at the elevator as if embarrassed. Nadia walked out, heartbeat synced to the soft hum of the shaft machinery. "Maintenance?" she called, because normal words can sometimes pin abnormal moments down. No answer. The panel inside showed a smudged button where 13 would be, as though hundreds of oily fingers had pressed air. The phone buzzed again. If a floor was once planned but never poured, where did the doors open? She told herself she'd just press L, watch the doors shut, walk back, lock up, sleep. Her finger hovered over the button. The elevator sighed deeper, like it wanted to mimic a living thing. The doors didn't wait. They sealed themselves with a soft kiss. The car did not move. The display cleared to blank, then pulsed a hyphen. Nadia's reflection on the brushed steel looked a fraction of a second out of sync, as if listening to a lagged broadcast of her life. Somewhere down in the shaft, something knocked once. Her phone lit the hall with a pale square. Third message. "You're on 12. It's already above you." She jolted her thumb across the screen. No contact name, just a gray bubble typing and stopping, typing and stopping. No previous thread existed. She flicked to call. The number was invalid, a concatenation of zeros and a country code that belonged to the ocean. The elevator remained motionless, doors closed, the faintest breeze feathering out of its seams. Behind her, the corridor stretched down to the exit sign, but the red letters bled at the edges like they'd been photographed through tears. A fourth text arrived. "Don't call, listen." She listened. A cable hummed. Far below, the knock came again, twice this time, patient, measured. Nadia counted seconds between strikes and thought of a metronome someone had set to waiting room. She pressed, "Door open." Nothing happened. "Door close." Nothing. The buttons had the dead response of museum glass. Another ping. "It stops where something was almost true. Check the plans." Nadia remembered the box of move-in papers under her sink. Lease, safety brochure, a trifold "Welcome to Denman Tower" with a watercolor cutaway of the building labeled like a child's biology diagram. She sprinted back, hands shaking, water still thrumming in the kettle. In the cutaway, floors were stacked like polite books. 12, 14, between them, a tiny white gap where the artist had left room for the superstition. In the margin, a pencil note, in her own handwriting, said service level with an arrow into the gap. She hadn't written that. Her phone vibrated against the glossy page. It was framed as service so no one would argue. They built a floor out of decisions. Then they boarded it over. The knocks changed rhythm. 3, then 1, then 3 again. A pattern. Nadia felt a memory unlock. The way her mother used to knock the door when her hands were full of groceries. 3, 1, 3. The elevator chimed, a soft sound that pretended to be friendly. The display remained. Nadia stepped back into the hall and realized the carpet's pattern misaligned not only at the elevator, but also at her own door, as if the corridor had been stretched to make something fit. Her phone, final text for the minute. When the hyphen shows, it means between. You live between 2 floors. Open from your side. You don't open an elevator from the outside unless you're the kind of person who keeps hex keys for comfort. Nadia was not that person. She was the kind who Googled late-night answers, but the building's Wi-Fi ring spun without end. If an answer existed, it didn't want to be found here. She went to the stairwell. Concrete steps coiled down, colder with each landing. On 12, the air tasted like paint. On 11, like metal shavings. She paused between them, palm on the cool rail, and felt a hollow behind the wall, a knot space where sound seemed to pool. Someone had plastered over a door, leaving a rectangle of paint that didn't quite match. The outline was the exact size of an elevator entrance. Through the wall, faint and careful, came a whisper of air, as if an unvented room breathed behind it. Her phone's camera, pointed at the wall, showed a glitch, a translucent overlay of an old photograph, men in paper hats, one holding blueprints, a dark shape where the elevator door should be, numbered 13 in a stenciled, no-nonsense font. The image jittered and slid off like a sticker. Ping, they used it once. Emergency overflow, no windows. Just a mechanical floor with a room inside it that swallowed a mistake, and the people who made it. "Who are you?" she typed. The reply came like an exhale, who you become when you don't sleep. From the stairwell's throat, a breeze rose, carrying a smell like wet wiring. Nadia pressed her ear to the painted rectangle and heard the clicking of relays, as if a room full of light switches was trying to speak. A hiss rode the clicks, nozzle, valve, blood in a pipe, until her own heartbeat matched the tap of it. She imagined the architects naming the unbuilt level after something tidy: service, storage, maintenance. When you name a ghost policy, people stop being afraid and start being obedient. Her phone shed one more line. Above 12, below 14, there's a floor that keeps score. When the count reaches your door, it arrives. Nadia backed away, the stairwell suddenly too intimate. A grim idea laddered through her head. If the elevator couldn't open, maybe the building could. Maybe the place that wasn't a place would accept an invitation. She looked up the well of stairs. The numbers painted on the landings counted like a mouth. 10, 11, 12. Then the riser above said 14. The absence buzzed louder than any presence. She returned to the hall to find her door ajar. She hadn't left it that way. The kettle had boiled itself dry and clicked off. The studio smelled like hot metal and something colder, like the air in a freezer aisle. On the table lay her phone, though she didn't remember putting it down. A new message waited without notification. "The car is waiting inside the wall. It will cross if you do." "How?" she asked the empty apartment. The radiator ticked in answer. Nadia dragged her dresser toward the wall by the elevator and wedged it under the hallway's exit bar, an instinct against running instead of toward. Then she faced the doors, whose seams whispered like sleeping teeth. She set her palm flat against the brushed steel. The cool tingled, pins and needles, and a small oval of warmth grew under her skin, as if a matching hand pressed back. She said, "Open." The doors slid half an inch, stopped, then eased wider, reluctant but obedient. No motor whined. The gap just widened, as if the space inside had been waiting and finally made room. The car yawned before her, lit by a panel that didn't illuminate edges so much as encourage them. The floor felt like rubber that remembered feet. She stepped inside. The doors closed without a sound. No buttons glowed now. The panel was a mirror of unlit circles, except one that wasn't a circle at all. Just the hyphen, a subtraction sign at eye level. Nadia touched it. The car moved. Down, she thought, but the sensation was sideways, a ferry gliding along a channel between buildings. The hum of cables became a faraway ocean. Her stomach stayed still. The display remained, and then briefly 13, like an eye that opened and squeezed shut. The car stopped. The doors parted on a corridor that didn't belong to her tower. Narrow, low-ceilinged, painted a bureaucratic gray that made the world feel smaller. The carpet's pattern was gone. The floor was concrete edged with old tape lines, the ghosts of safety zones. At the far end stood a door with no knob, only a slot like a mouth forced to be polite. A single fluorescent tube buzzed overhead with that insect frequency that makes your teeth grit. Her phone offered a final instruction: you can ask it a question. It will ask one back. Do not answer. What question? She whispered. But the car was already closing behind her. Nadia approached the door. The slot fluttered, a breath through a brass windpipe. When she stopped inches away, something slid into view beyond the slot. A card with her name printed on it in a font the building used for packages. Under her name, Tenant Between. Is this service? She asked, because naming things sometimes muzzles them. The door spoke in a voice like an air vent. Exchange. What do you take? What you misplace, said the door. Time left on kettles. Steps you forget climbing. Seconds when a call should have connected but didn't. What do you give? Corrections. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, frantic without sound. She didn't look. The door continued. Ask. Nadia felt a memory claw up. Her mother's 313 knock, the grocery bags, the way the latch stuck that winter because the building settled or would not settle. If the world could be edited, she wanted to edit the absence out of it. Can you fix a missing thing? We can fix a count. The fluorescent light stuttered, throwing frames of darkness across her face. From inside the wall came the clatter of relays, tallying, a ledger written in taps. The door asked, "Where do you belong?" Her phone burned in her hand now. A message finally opened. Do not answer. Let the silence answer for you. Nadia closed her mouth. The question waited. The slot exhaled impatience. The knocks in the shaft reconfigured to a new rhythm. 2-1-2-1. An argument tapping its foot. She pictured the building, its bones set around a hollow. Every night, the elevator arrived from a floor that should not exist to rebalance the math of what people lost crossing thresholds. If she answered, she suspected the balance would be paid by assigning her to the space that matched her words. She did the opposite of answering. She stepped back. The fluorescent tube calmed. The slot withdrew her name. The door said nothing, then said, "Correction rejected." Behind her, the elevator doors opened. The car was the same. The air was not. When she stepped in, the panel showed 12. The motion that followed felt vertical again. The doors opened to her hallway, her carpet's repeating pattern neatly aligned, for the first time since she'd moved in. She locked her apartment twice and watched the kettle fill and boil and click off at exactly the right moment. Her phone lay still, no new numbers. At 2:17 the next night, the elevator dinged without being called. The display showed the doors did not open. Nadia pressed her ear to the wood of her door and listened to a car waiting on a floor that didn't exist, counting quietly to itself like rain on a roof you can't see. She didn't answer, and for a long time the building didn't either.